to anyone. We'll send it out to anyone who's unable to attend. So welcome. My name is Ann Meyer, again, if I haven't met you, and I am the high school principal. And we are bringing ninth grade parents together tonight to welcome you to the high school, share some useful information as your child begins their time in the high school, and then just be available to answer any questions that have come up at this point. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen to get started. Here we go. And so we are thrilled to have your children joining us in the high school, and so happy this year that we are starting all together in person all day, every day. It's really been a wonderful few days having everyone in the building. The energy is there, the excitement, the teachers are thrilled, students are obviously super excited to be there. And you know, we can feel it. This is why we do what we do, to have these students with us and in the building. And I know it's going to be a great year. We want to give you some just general information about the high school that, you know, at this point in time, you might be thinking, what do the next 4 years look like? Your child might be wondering that, starting to hear things in the cafeteria about courses, et cetera, et cetera. And we're just here to calm everyone down, give you a sense of what the pathway looks like generally over the next 4 years, and reassure you that we're going to be with you the entire way. So I'm just going to share with you a couple of pictures from our activities fair. I just took them a few minutes ago. And so we really encouraged, you know, as many ninth graders as possible to come this evening to the cafeteria. It ended up all being in the cafeteria, our new cafeteria. You probably haven't seen it in person, but it's a great space. And what you can see in these pictures is clubs come. We have over 30 clubs in the high school. They come and they set up posters. I hate to tell you this, but it's become a tradition that they bring candy and hand it out to your children. Some brought cookies, and students basically have the opportunity to walk around, hear about the clubs from the student leaders of those clubs. And then you can see at some of these tables, they can sign up to be a part of that club. Now, I had a couple students, freshmen, ask me some questions, so I thought this would be a perfect opportunity to clarify to you a few things about clubs, because it's one of the great ways right away in high school to get involved, meet new people, explore interests, and, you know, something new that you have in high school that maybe you didn't have as much in middle school. So if you've noticed, we have a regular daily schedule, and then we have something now called an X block schedule. And the X block schedule shortens classes 10 minutes and creates this extra time at lunch. So lunch is longer, but this is the time when clubs will meet. Now, this year, we're going to have X block days on Tuesdays and Fridays. And hopefully you saw on Sunday, I sent you something called a week ahead for the high school. I'm going to be sending those every Sunday. In that Google Doc, it'll list the important events coming up that week. And starting next week, you and your child will see that clubs will be listed on the days that they're meeting, along with where the club meeting's taking place. Now, it's important to know that clubs don't meet a certain club, let's say French club, it doesn't necessarily meet every week. It might meet twice a month, might meet once a month. So what this means is students can be involved in multiple clubs. And in fact, that's what we recommend. Sign up for a bunch of clubs. Guess what? If you didn't sign up, but you hear about one you're interested in, go to the meeting. It's open to anyone. And in the first month or two of school, your child should attend a bunch of club meetings just to see, do they like the people in that club? Are they interested in what the club's doing? Because as I told one of the students who asked me about 20 minutes ago, you don't have to keep going if you're no longer interested. It's not like a class. You can show up, you don't have to show up. So what I recommend is that students try a bunch of clubs and then maybe end up with 2 that they're interested in continuing, maybe 3. So I just wanted to clarify that for all of you, that it's no problem if there's 6 or 7 clubs to start and your child goes to a bunch of different meetings and then they decide what they might want to continue to pursue. And they could try a new club in the middle of the year. They could try a new club next year or at any point in high school. In fact, we're inviting our 10th graders to the same event tonight at 7 because they never had this in person. Last year, we weren't able to have something like this. And we feel it's such a great way in the high school to get involved. We wanted to make sure they had that opportunity. So welcome to the high school. We'll have a time at the end and I'd be happy to answer any questions that come up. But at this point, I'm going to hand it over to our Director of Guidance, Erin Kind, to continue.
Thanks, Ann. Good evening, everyone. It's nice to see so many familiar faces and names on the little boxes on my screen again this year. For those that don't know me, my name is Erin Kind. I'm the Director of Counseling for Bronxville School. Momentarily, you'll get to hear from the rest of the counselors about the services we provide throughout the year, our role in your and your students' lives, more about the bedrock of our 9th grade counseling services program, which is the freshman transition program. And batting cleanup tonight is Tom Viviano, the high school psychologist, who's going to share some strategies to help support both you and your students' social emotional well-being. Before I turn things over to Ellen, I just want to Ann's point, comment that I feel like it's quite fitting that we have this parent event on the same time we have our activities fair, because much like Ann said, tonight is true, or I should say 9th grade is truly about exploration and having students tap into and follow their curiosity, making connections with their classmates and teachers. And so when they get home tonight or when you see them after this, ask them what they signed up for, ask them what they were excited to learn more about, be excited for them. You know, there's a lot of, good research in the field of education that speaks to students that have higher grades also have more connection to their school. And that's really what this year, kind of building that foundation around that this year is really important. This isn't about a resume or college or, joining 15 clubs and seeing who can attend the most clubs. This is just about kind of pulling at that string of curiosity that we know is within each student. As Ann mentioned, I just want to reiterate, this is not the only opportunity for a student to join a club. It's just a fair to see what's out there. Ann mentioned in some of her emails that she'll send out, we list when the clubs are meeting, where they're meeting, who the advisor is, the faculty advisor, and the student, the executives of the club, so that students can make connections that way as well, just to see if, the club is actually happening. And then the last thing I just want to say, and this sort of ties into, Angela Duckworth's book about grit is, and mentioned it, to stick with it. Nobody's won awards after their first poem that they wrote, and many people took some time to fall in love with chess or to get good at soccer. And so what I would encourage you, and what we encourage the students as counselors, is to stick with it, to go to a few meetings before they decide maybe it's not for them. It's in that kind of like that icky feeling of staying in the uncomfortability, to see things through, to find out if you are actually good at something or if you actually like something. And so, there's kind of like one meeting, it wasn't for me. Sometimes, the meetings are run by high school students. Sometimes they're disorganized. Sometimes they're more organized. But really encourage your child to stick with it and see if it is in fact something that they're interested in. With that, I'm going to turn it over to you, Ellen, to talk about the programs and services for 9th grade and beyond.
Hi, everyone. So nice to see you all here tonight. I am here. I'm going to talk a little bit about the high school counseling program. This slide is actually part of our counseling office page on the high school website. I'm going to talk more about early high school, ninth grade, and segueing a little bit about next year. But if you want to look in depth or talk to any of us about it, we would love to talk to you more about the long-term plans. But I'm not going to spend too long going over everything. I'm really going to talk about ninth grade. As you know, in eighth grade, we had our parent orientation, we went to the advisories, we had our family meetings, and now we're here in ninth grade. Your kids are in the building and we've started. In terms of what we have going on, we have a lot of stuff going on right now. As you can see, large group parent meetings. Here you are, the ninth grade picnic / orientation activity fair going on in the building right now. And here we are on Zoom with you all. The freshman transition program, which Mr. Kine mentioned, is our orientation program. It has an emphasis on social emotional learning. All of your ninth graders are divided up into small groups with 3 or 4, sometimes even 5, 12th grade mentors who have been screened and applied for this position because it's so important to them. And they lead these small groups in the orientation to high school based on their experiences, both extracurricularly, academically, and they just are great point people for your ninth graders. Historically, we have done a fall trip to Sharp Reservation, but we're hopeful that we might be able to do this later on in the spring, where we do team building exercises with those orientation groups and leaders. And it's just a really nice way for the whole grade to be together off of our grounds. And we also start in the spring, March, April with our course planning meetings, where based on the performance and interests that your students have honed this year, we look toward building a rigorous and interesting program for them for next year for 10th grade. Also, in addition to these group things, we have individual things that happen. We have a first quarter check-in where counselors meet with all their students, a second quarter check-in just to see again an update, and then of course the family meeting in March where we do the course planning. If you do a quick peek to 10th grade, you'll see kind of similarly structured with some individuals meetings, some annual meeting where we do course selection, and then we do something called the sophomore workshops, which are small group workshops with the counselor, and we also have a little emphasis on career and interest, potential college majors for students to kind of reflect within and think about who they are. So that's a little sneak preview toward next year. If you want to look on the counseling page, as I mentioned, you can look and learn a little bit more about 11 and 12. Okay, so with that, to speak a little bit about the role of the counselor, we have Ms. Zelikoff with us tonight. Take it away.
Hey everyone, thank you. Good to see everyone's name on Zoom. So as you can see by this slide, we as counselors wear many different hats. And for that reason, we're really your primary point of contact for a variety of different questions and concerns you may have as you move through the next 4 years. So every year, just like Ms. Cohen just mentioned, we meet with students and families to take time and really reflect on their academic progress, as well as to plan schedules for the following school year. We work with students on time management, really as it pertains to course selection, as well as just in general academic skills for success. And you can see on the slide self-advocacy, that's obviously a huge part of that skill set that we're working with students on. So ultimately, these academic conversations eventually transition into conversations surrounding post-secondary planning and the college process. Ms. Cohen mentioned that in 10th grade, we really start to speak with students about their passions and interests, as well as in every year, sort of just their general school experiences. And so it sort of makes sense that we also are social emotional support for students as well. We meet with students in large groups, small groups, as well as individually, and partner with Dr. Viviano, our school psychologist, and other support staff in the building when necessary. So long story short, our door is always open. We love having a full guidance office when we get to move back there, especially now that everyone is back in the building. So looking forward to an awesome school year ahead. And you're going to hear about the freshman transition program now.
Hi, everyone. I'm Miss Hassan J. Kai, or Miss H, as many of the students call me. Nice to see everyone tonight. So Miss Cohen already gave some great information about freshman transition. I just kind of want to dive a little bit more into it. So basically, the purpose of freshman transition is to really help your child adjust to high school life, meaning the academic life, the social life, gaining skills, social emotional skills. And the seniors are really there to help guide them through these things, since they have experienced Bronxville High School in some cases for all 4 years. So it's a good way for the seniors to develop their own leadership skills and help them transition to college. But it's also a great way for them to kind of pay it back to the younger students. And our seniors this year are so excited to be freshman transition leaders. We had a great orientation training for them prior to the start of the school year. We did a bunch of fun activities in the auditorium. People got introduced to their group. So we're really looking forward to having a fully in-person freshman transition this year, because last year it was mostly on Zoom, which made that a lot more difficult. We're still continuing with the small group model, as Ms. Cohen mentioned. There'll be about, I would say, 10 to 12 freshmen in a group, and then about 6 seniors. So it's a great way for your child to meet other students within their grade level and connect with them in different ways, and also get a chance to meet different seniors in the building, to have some familiar faces to say hello to in the hallways, and to ask questions to. So it really covers a wide range of topics, as I mentioned before. Right now, we're kind of focusing in on academics and understanding the schedule and what high school classes look like, and advice that the seniors can give to the freshmen. Now we're kind of transitioning to the social life, since we have the club fair tonight. Students are going to continually learn how to build connections on campus with teachers, students, other faculty members, all while having some fun along the way. So with that, we can move forward with the next slide, which I believe is Dr. Viviano.
Hi, everybody. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Tom Viviano. I'm the high school psychologist. Really nice to be here. That last slide, Deanna, was a nice segue, especially that piece about stress management. You kind of just really led the way to this piece. We're really hoping to incorporate more and more of that social emotional piece into the freshman transition program. We were successful in doing that last year, and we keep, figuring out different ways to incorporate that into what we give, not only to the seniors, but what can we give to the seniors to impart on their freshman groups. So this is just sort of a taste that I thought would be, pretty simple and practical to give you as parents, but also to impart on your children, and just some things to be mindful about. So one of the more cornerstones of managing stress, and we all know this, that the mind-body connection, it sounds really hokey, but it actually is really supported by the research. So the main skill here is making sure that you're practicing ways to make yourself less vulnerable to stress in the first place. And the way you do that primarily is by maintaining your physical health. And I know as I go through this is a caveat that I'll keep repeating. It sounds pretty obvious when I go through these things. The skill is really doing it, and especially doing it when you feel like, oh my gosh, I'm feeling really overwhelmed, I'm feeling really stressed. So, initially I thought this would be imparted to the freshmen, which it will be, but it's almost even better to impart it on you, because I feel like as adults, this stuff gets harder and harder and harder. Maybe I'm just speaking for myself, but I find that to be true. So again, the idea is maintaining the physical health to really reduce the vulnerability to everyday stressors. Life is full of stress, and I'm not saying this to make us feel more stressed, but that's just a reality, right? So one practical skill, we like to use acronyms, as you can see, the PLEASE skills in my world. It's just a way to kind of easily remember things that could be helpful. So the first is treating physical illness. So I don't know about you, but I've had an ankle injury, minor, but for a few years, and I just let it go. And, or you have a cold that you let go too long, or you're maybe, you're kind of avoiding things. we know that your physical self is important in shoring up that ability to fight off those vulnerabilities. So the whole idea is, getting to the doctor when you're sick, listening to your body. The better you're able to regulate your physical self, the better you're able to regulate your emotions. And when it comes to children, I feel like sometimes they may, or students rather, they may underplay certain things or dismiss certain things. And I think it's up to, you as adults to know them very well to kind of be on the lookout for those things, because it might be a student who's overly stressed, wants to get their homework done, overly scheduled, and they're kind of putting off that. So be on the lookout for that. The second part is balanced eating. So I think it's so easy to get caught up in a busy schedule, especially with some of our students who are doing a lot of things, activities, classes, and either they forget to eat or they maybe get to a point where they eat maybe a little bit too much that's not necessarily nutritious. So you just want to be on the lookout for that. Balanced eating goes a long way in also helping us kind of regulate our bodies and our minds. The third one, avoid, I kind of reworded this a little bit for sort of student population, but in mind influencing substances. And we've done this sort of workshop with the sophomores last year, and we did a poll about caffeine intake. And I was surprised by how many students are drinking a lot of caffeinated beverages, whether it be coffee, energy drinks, which was substantially higher than just coffee. And, that goes a long way too in impacting our mood. I think sometimes in the short term, it's effective, right? You get your things done and you feel accomplished. In the long term, you may or may not be feeling more anxious. You might be feeling more amped up. I personally, again, am not ashamed to admit I quit coffee drinking years ago because I was just feeling super anxious for no reason. And I couldn't put my finger on it. And I realized, okay, this caffeine is coursing through my body. I'm getting like really weirdly upset about this email that shouldn't make me upset. It's just like these things kind of impact the way you perceive certain things that are pretty common, and it helps filter it and maybe in not the best way. Balanced sleep is obviously something that we all struggle with or can struggle with. And for students as they get older, especially in high school, are balancing a lot of things. Again, that word balance. The idea here is to just balance your sleep schedule. So some people say I can get by on 7 hours, I can get by on 9 hours. And the idea is just to keep that going and encouraging your students, especially on the weekends where I feel like a lot of kids tend to sleep in, and then Monday comes around and they're a little bit groggy, and it's just not ideal. And then finally, easier said than done, but getting exercise. So it's good for the mind. We all know that. And sometimes I recommend getting students to pair up with their friends and just go on a long walk, or a lot of students play sports, which is excellent. That goes a long way in helping that piece as well. But just to wrap up, whenever I talk about some of these things, it sounds really simple. The idea is to really program it into your daily practice and be mindful. So I'm going to make sure I go to bed on time. I'm going to program in so to speak, in my agenda. I'm going to go get some exercise. And I think that's the takeaway for me when I first sort of was getting more acquainted with these types of skills that, again, seem pretty obvious, but the point is to really be mindful in implementing them.
Thank you, Tom.
Thanks.
And so at this point, I think what we would like to do is just open it up for questions that have come up, anything that you're wondering about or confused about. I know there's a lot of changes when students start 9th grade. Hopefully now that we're 4 days into school, they've gotten a little bit of hang of the schedule, but we're happy to open the floor. You're welcome to put a question in the chat. I'll try to, maybe Erin and I can try to manage that, or you can just speak. You can unmute yourself. So how can we be helpful?
should we break the ice here? Tom, there's a question about like alternatives to you need to telling your child they need to get more sleep. Somebody was making the connection that the energy drinks were a sign of being overly tired, and so like we'll go to sleep early is met with right a pushback from a 13 or 14 or 15-year-old. I don't know if you have any thoughts. I have a few, but I'll let you field that one first.
Yeah, I bet our thoughts kind of overlap quite a bit, and I'm sure you're thinking of things I'm not thinking of. I mean, for me, that question sort of points back to that word balance. And, as a parent, can you sit down and instead of maybe, saying, let's figure out how you can get more sleep, really problem solve, what's getting in the way of sleep? Are you sort of maybe overextended? Or are you spending more time on homework that you maybe think it should be perfect and it's already great? Like that kind of an idea of like having more of a conversation with them and figuring out what is it that is leading you to drink those things. Are you staying up and playing video games that I don't know about? Like that, those kind of a question, just having a real honest talk in a totally non-judgmental way. Like I really just want to help figure this out. I think can be very helpful. What do you think, Aaron?
No, I think that's bullseye. I guess I was thinking more for myself, right? I know if it's the middle of the day and I'm feeling like a little tired, sometimes I'll just move a muscle, right? Like I'll go exercise in some form, whatever that may be. And I think at least for the students throughout the day, if they're not getting enough movement and they're sitting in class all day and they're trying to drink energy drinks or, frappuccinos to get some energy at night to do their homework or what have you, maybe some working with your child or helping your child find some type of activity that gets them outside, get them some sunlight while, there is still a lot of good sunlight out, and helping them get active might also help their sort of, physiological responses that are going on.
There's a couple questions I'll get to in the chat in a second. I'm just going to throw this out there a little more practical. Shut off the internet, put some time limits on their phone. When we have students who tell us they're not sleeping at night, and we find out they have a gaming system in their bedroom, take it away. It's not easy, it's not fun, but some of our students need that. They need very clear boundaries, and they just need to get off those devices, read a little bit, and then go to sleep. So just going to throw that out there. Mr. Lassane and I end up with the kids who are regularly late. And some of the things we hear about what their room setup is like, no wonder. I'm not going to put my 13-year-old daughter in a room where she has the option to watch Netflix all night. She won't stop. So anyway, I want to answer the question about lockers. There are high school lockers. We actually do not assign them. But if your child would like one, they can come to the high school office and Ms. Colarusso will give them a locker. Some students want them, most don't. So it's really, feel free to have your child stop by. There is no homework roster in the high school. This is one of those things we move away from middle school. Students do have to become more responsible for their work on their own. However, if you're concerned about that, certainly the guidance counselors are here to work with your child on a way to keep track of things. So that is something that a guidance counselor would be more than happy to do with a student.
Can I just add to that real quick, Anne, about the homework? So this is again where like the freshman transition program comes in pretty clutch. We, have I think there's something like 70 seniors. So it's a wide range of students. Overwhelmingly the seniors have, their Google Classroom hooked up to their Google Calendar on their phone, and their notifications are turned on. And so everything, all the teachers have a Google Classroom page. And so all the homework assignments, when tests and quizzes are coming up, are all going to be posted there. And so everything that's on the classroom is getting pushed to their calendar. And then I guess, if you want to take it one step further, you could try to get into like a sharing of a calendar situation with your child if you really wanted to do that. But we do find that I would say like that's probably the biggest jump right there is the, move away from homework being in one spot, nicely organized for you, to you having to, keep track of it yourself. And, the students do a great job of it, quite frankly. If your child has a consultant teacher or a resource room teacher, those teachers also have on the board every 9th grade class that meets in the building, the upcoming homework, the upcoming tests, that's just posted on the board. So, they've kind of taken it old school and taken it out of the internet, if you will, and putting it on the board. And so I think for each student, it works differently. Some students are really organized and they have a planner and they have different colored Post-its for different colored classes, and that's great. Some students use their phone. Some students need a little bit of support, and, the parents out there, which student is yours. If they're in need of some support, definitely feel free to reach out to their counselor, and we can obviously check in with them and see where they're at and see what their sort of what their routine is, right? I think it's really important to get into routines. Like Tom said, scheduling time to do certain things throughout the day. As we all know, many of our students are very busy after school, and there's a finite amount of time between eating, showering, and sleeping. And so you do really need to use your time wisely. And I think some of it comes just as they go through 9th grade. They get the flow of things. And I think to Anne's point, after the first few days, they probably have the flow of the 6-day cycle, which they're somewhat familiar with from middle school, but they see how it works in high school. And, by the end of the month, they'll be that much more in a groove and that much more acclimated to high school life and expectations.
Couple of other questions. There are no homerooms, so we don't have that, or advisory. So students, the daily schedule is from 8:30 to 3. And they're just going from class to class. I realize now in that comment that last year students didn't go from class to class in the middle school, but this year all students in the middle school are moving from class to class. So that's something students get pretty used to. Again, lockers are available if you're worried about your child, how heavy their backpack is, or them needing to put their coats somewhere. I have no idea where high school students put their coats. Their winter coats, they deal with them. I don't know, maybe they throw them in their backpack. They kind of manage them. But I will say in high school, students are going to half of their classes every day. In middle school, they might have had to carry around 8 different things. In high school, it's 4. So backpacks are different in high school because we have block scheduling. So each day they go to half of their classes. So that does make it a bit more manageable. They're not going to as many places in one day. They're not carrying as much stuff, but we have lockers. We are happy to give your child a locker, no problem whatsoever. And then there's a question about quizzes and tests. I don't know if someone in the counseling department wants to take that.
I'll actually share one more pointer about backpacks that a student once shared with me, and it's not good for everybody, but for some students it's worked well. I've had students in the past who have had 2 different color backpacks. One is their odd day backpack and one is their even day backpack. So they're not always shuffling. They're not like taking heavy textbooks out, and they know the morning of that day, they grab it and go. So that's a pointer that some students have found helpful to that. There was something about quizzes and tests. All parents have access to their students' account through Google Classroom. So you could look and see when tests and quizzes are coming up. However, we're really encouraging students to kind of take the reins here. This is the transition to high school. We are preparing them for college. They really should be managing their own schedules. If they're being super secretive, you can always peep on Google Classroom, but I'm hopeful that, that you'll start to see this transition. And then there was one more question that I'll answer. That I saw. Okay, how long does it take ninth graders in the past to acclimate to the upswing of intensity of sports and academics? Definitely more than 4 days, which is what we've been in so far. I think, you know, with it, it probably will take a good month to get their grounds to be able to seamlessly run from class to class. So it'll become second nature. But I mean, it is more of a workload. It is, the sports are definitely more of a commitment, but they're ready. They are ready. It's just an adjustment, and an adjustment for you guys too.
And I just want to point out that we have had the conversation as a faculty that hybrid, well, actually the middle schoolers were fully in person all year. Our high schoolers weren't, they were hybrid. And so just this idea that this year, as we go into the year, it might take a little more time for everyone to get into the swing of things. So teachers are aware of that and making adjustments as needed.
First contact for various issues. If you have an issue with a specific class, the point of contact is the teacher. So I always say encourage this, it's depending on the issue. The student can reach out to the teacher first, and then as a follow-up, a parent can reach out to the teacher. It's nice when it comes from the student first in situations where that's possible. Social and emotional issues, counseling department for sure. We're happy to talk to you about anything. Dr. Viviano is also a great resource, and we work very closely together with him. General guidance, I think probably the counseling office, depending on what it's about, and if not, we'll direct you to the right person. If it's the athletics department or whomever, would be the right source. Tips for organizing your study areas at home. Listen, it's not teenagers' fault that they can't leave Netflix, that they can't put their phone down, that they're just not developmentally there yet to have that willpower. So you can't be frustrated as an adult. And even as an adult, we sometimes have those problems. It's neuroscience, they're not there yet. So get all that stuff away in another room. It should be someplace where there is a door between them and their phone, I just did it to my daughter tonight, it's away her phone. You know, the iPads are away. Things should not charge in their bedroom. The charging station should be in a family place, maybe even on a different floor if you can do that. And then organizing the study area at home. Kids are different. You know, I always think, I'm like, don't study in bed, you'll fall asleep. Don't read in bed. Some kids, like, they do better, that they're more comfortable there. They can read in bed, but you know, just keeping a minimum of distractions, and just with sitting down with your child and saying, what do you think would be your ideal study situation? What do you think would make yourself the most productive? And brainstorming and working it on it together. If the student has some ownership in creating this, and if you're like, would it be helpful if I got a big calendar from Staples, or they suggest that and you do it, you know, if they feel invested in it, they'll be more likely to follow some kind of plan or feel more organized.
As far as extra help, it's 7:45 to 8:30, and students just show up to the teacher. What we do find in high school, because students will have these teachers more than once, and if they're particularly interested in the subject in high school later, they could do an independent study and follow their passion with that teacher. And students really develop strong relationships with the teachers in high school. And a lot of that comes through extra help. So what I'm going to say to all of you is that it's wonderful this year, extra help is in person. Last year it was really, I mean, we had students who missed that time with their teacher, who had really enjoyed that, just stopping by and talking about something interesting that was taught the last class, or they saw something on TV. That's what it's about, helping in classes, but it's also about, you know, those relationships that you form with your teachers. So please, extra help is a really important place in the high school for students to build those relationships.
I guess one other general point, because a lot of people are asking about like balancing time and things like that in the high school. Definitely, like, please encourage your child to like speak to us or speak to their freshman transition leader. We're happy to help figure out a way for your child to balance everything in the best way they can with the academics and sports. It's a big adjustment in the high school. So I totally understand someone wrote about their child feeling tired from it all. Please reach out to us. We're happy to help.
Well, what we find in the high school is because it's block scheduling, it does feel less frenetic. It's a really positive schedule at this point in time where the workload is a little bit higher, but you have an additional day to get those things done. So that does require a bit more time management, assignment management, but it also prepares students for college much, much more effectively. So in any case, it takes some time to adjust to, but students don't want to go back to something other than block scheduling. It's very positive. Aaron, I saw you maybe wanted to answer.
Oh, no,
something.
I was just going to answer the next question. Somebody asked about government, student government. So there is student government. It kind of works twofold. There is a extracurricular organization called Student Faculty Legislator, which is SFL. Miss H is a co-advisor there. I believe they meet on Thursdays, although I think this Thursday we're not there. So in a second, she can tell you when they're meeting. That is a meeting of all the club presidents, or I should say the grade level presidents and other elected officials in different grades, along with anybody else that just wants to show up. And so faculty are encouraged to attend. I've been attending. Ms. Meyer is a regular there as well. It's run by the SFL president, and then there's a cabinet there, and the senior class president, their cabinet, and so on and so forth. And so for the 9th grade class, there will be an election that Ms. Meyer can probably give you a timeline on. I'd say maybe October, but they will have a class president and other elected officials. And the 9th grade faculty advisor is Ms. Clark, I believe.
Yep.
And you'll probably receive something from her in some form as it gets a little bit closer to the elections time.
Yeah, there'll be a nomination form for any student interested in running for class elections. And I usually send it out through Infinite Campus. So in a few weeks, you should see something.
I just saw one going back into the chat, a question about, in this case, it was de-stressing. And the question was about what about parents, or what about students who don't listen to their parents? And I think that applies to not only, try this skill or do your homework, just everything. I mean, I can also speak, ask the rest of the faculty here, but my philosophy is, let us maybe take on some of that role in teaching those things. And maybe, the most successful experiences I've had is removing the conflict from that relationship with you and your child and giving it to us, almost like putting the onus on us to say, we're going to be the person who comes in and say, you might want to try this. They definitely take it differently than when it's coming from their parents. So that's the short answer. But the other part of the short answer is yes, just refer to the counselor or to me. Feel free to reach out. But I don't know if anybody else here agrees with that kind of philosophy.
Absolutely. And just building off on that, I think that there are natural consequences at Bronxville. Students really like to do well, and students really like to learn and engage with teachers and their friends and have fun, sort of academically centered conversations, maybe more so than back in middle school. And so I think students, you'll find as they start getting deeper and deeper into the content areas and start to form closer and closer connections with teachers, they're going to want to do well. So that is a piece of it as well. And we're here, exactly what everyone's saying, to partner with you on that.
Mr. Lassane and I are happy to help. He can be very effective in some of these conversations and is honestly more than happy to be involved. So don't hesitate to reach out to either of us either. Listen, we're coming upon 8 o'clock, and I just want to let everyone know that if you have additional questions, feel free to reach out to any of us, your child's counselor, Dr. Viviano, myself, Mr. Lassane. We are here to help you and help guide you through this along with your child. We are thrilled to see them in person. I cannot tell you how happy Mr. Lassane just texted me. That was the best tonight at the activities fair, just to see the students, the ninth graders together, meeting upperclassmen, signing up for all these awesome clubs we have. I will publish a list of all the clubs and the advisors in probably about a week, just so you guys, anyone can see what there is out there. And there's a lot of great things going on. So we really, really look forward to the year. It's going to be a good one, and don't hesitate to reach out at any point. Thank you so much for your time this evening. We hope it was helpful, and we will hopefully see you in person soon. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, Dan.
Thank you.
Good night, everybody.
Good night, everybody.
Thank you.